Patrice Émery Lumumba was a Congolese independence leader and the first democratically elected Prime Minister of the Republic of the Congo. As founder and leader of the Mouvement National Congolais, Lumumba helped win his country's independence from Belgium in 1960. Within 12 weeks, Lumumba's government was deposed in a coup during the Congo Crisis. The main reason why he was ousted from power was his opposition to Belgian-backed secession of the mineral-rich Katanga province. Lumumba was subsequently imprisoned by state authorities under Joseph-Desiré Mobutu and executed by firing squad under the command of the secessionist Katangan authorities. The United Nations, which he had asked to come to the Congo, did not intervene to save him. Belgium, the United States, and the United Kingdom have all been accused of involvement in Lumumba's death. Early life and career: Lumumba was born to a farmer, from a section wa Tolingo Tachima, and his wife, Julienne Wamato Lormanja, in Onalwa in the Katakokom region of the Kasai province of the Belgian Congo. He was a member of the Tetela ethnic group and was born with the name of Élias Okit'Asombo. His original surname means heir of the cursed, and is derived from the Tetela words Okita/Okita and Asombo cubed. He had 3 brothers and 1 half-brother. Raised in a Catholic family, he was educated at a Protestant primary school, a Catholic missionary school, and finally the government post office training school, passing the 1-year course with distinction. He subsequently worked in La Copyright Poldville and Stanleyville as a postal clerk and as a traveling beer salesman. In 1951, he married Pauline Opangu. In 1955, Lumumba became regional head of the Cartels of Stanleyville and joined the Liberal Party of Belgium, where he worked on editing and distributing party literature. After traveling on a 3-week study tour in Belgium, he was arrested in 1955 on charges of embezzlement. His 2-year sentence was commuted to 12 months after it was confirmed by Belgian lawyer Jules Kroon that Lumumba had returned the funds, and he was released in July 1956. After his release, he helped found the broad-based Mouvement National Congolais in 1958, later becoming the organization's president. Lumumba and his team represented the MNC at the All-African People's Conference in Accra, Ghana, in December 1958. At this international conference, hosted by Pan-African President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Lumumba further solidified his Pan-Africanist beliefs. Lumumba spoke Tetela, French, Lingala, Swahili, and Chiluba. Leader of MNC. In late October 1959, Lumumba, as leader of the organization, was arrested for inciting an anti-colonial riot in Stanleyville where 30 people were killed. He was sentenced to 69 months in prison. The trial start date of January 18, 1960, was also the first day of a round-table conference in Brussels to finalize the future of the Congo. Despite Lumumba's imprisonment at the time, the MNC won a convincing majority in the December local elections in the Congo. As a result of strong pressure from delegates upset with Lumumba's trial, he was released and allowed to attend the Brussels conference. The conference culminated on January 27 with a declaration of Congolese independence, setting June 30, 1960, as the independence date with national elections from May 25, 1960. Lumumba and the MNC won this election and the right to form a government, with the announcement on June 23, 1960 of 34-year-old Lumumba as Congo's first prime minister and Joseph Kasavubu as its president. In accordance with the constitution, on June 24 the new government passed a vote of confidence and was ratified by the Congolese Chamber and Senate. Independence Day was celebrated on June 30 in a ceremony attended by many dignitaries including Belgian King Baudouin and the foreign press. Baudouin's speech praised developments under colonialism, his reference to the genius of his great-granduncle La Copyright Paul II of Belgium glossing over atrocities committed during the Congo Free State. The king continued, "Don't compromise the future with hasty reforms, and don't replace the structures that Belgium hands over to you until you are sure you can do better. Don't be afraid to come to us. We will remain by your side, give you advice." While President Kasavubu thanked the king, Lumumba, who was not scheduled to speak, delivered an impromptu speech which reminded the audience that the independence of the Congo was not granted magnanimously by Belgium. For this independence of the Congo, even as it is celebrated today with Belgium, a friendly country with whom we deal as equal to equal, no Congolese worthy of the name will ever be able to forget that it was by fighting that it has been won, a day-to-day fight, an ardent and idealistic fight, a fight in which we were spared neither privation nor suffering, and for which we gave our strength and our blood. We are proud of this struggle, of tears, of fire, and of blood, to the depths of our being, for it was a noble and just struggle, and indispensable to put an end to the humiliating slavery which was imposed upon us by force. The king spoke of his father's great work in the country and asked its new leaders to measure up to their example. The speech of President Kasavubu assured the king that they would try hard. Lumumba spoke of the suffering of the Congolese under Belgian colonialism, of a Euro injustice, oppression and exploitation a Euro. Neither the audience nor the king and his entourage were accustomed to hearing of the negatives that lay behind the pageantry and paternalism. It stirred the crowd while simultaneously humiliating and alienating the king. Lumumba was later harshly criticized for what many in the Western world a Euro, but virtually none in Africa Euro described as the inappropriate nature of his speech. Some media claimed at the time that he ended his speech by ad-libbing, "Nous ne sommes plus vos macaques," a Euro referring to a common slur used against Africans by Belgians. However, these words are neither in his written text nor in radio tapes of his speech. Actions as Prime Minister. A few days after Congo gained its independence, Lumumba made the fateful decision to raise the pay of all government employees except for the army. Many units of the army also had strong objections toward the uniformly Belgian officers. General Janssens, the army head, told them their lot would not change after independence, and they rebelled in protest. The rebellions quickly spread throughout the country, leading to a general breakdown in law and order. Although the trouble was highly localized, the country seemed to be overrun by gangs of soldiers and looters, causing a media sensation, particularly over Europeans fleeing the country. The province of Katanga declared independence under regional Premier Mousset Chom on July 11, 1960 with support from the Belgian government and mining companies such as Union Miniere. Despite the arrival of UN troops, unrest continued. Since the United Nations refused to help suppress the rebellion in Katanga, Lumumba sought Soviet aid in the form of arms, food, medical supplies, trucks, and planes to help move troops to Katanga. Lumumba's decisive actions alarmed his colleagues and President Joseph Kasavubu, who preferred a more moderate political approach. Deposition and death. In September, the president dismissed Lumumba from government. Lumumba immediately protested the legality of the president's actions. In retaliation, Lumumba declared Kasavubu deposed and won a vote of confidence in the Senate, while the newly appointed Prime Minister failed to gain Parliament's confidence. The country was torn by two political groups claiming legal power over the country. On September 14, a coup d'etat unregistered trademark a copyright act organized by Colonel Joseph Mobutu incapacitated both Lumumba and Kasavubu. Lumumba was placed under house arrest at the Prime Minister's residence, although UN troops were positioned around the house to protect him. Nevertheless, Lumumba decided to rouse his supporters in Haute Congo. Smuggled out of his residence at night, he escaped to Stanleyville, where his intention apparently was to set up his own government and army. Pursued by troops loyal to Mobutu, he was finally captured in Port Ranki on December 1, 1960 and flown to La Copyright Paulville in ropes, not handcuffs. Mobutu claimed Lumumba would be tried for inciting the army to rebellion and other crimes. UN response. United Nations Secretary-General Dag Hammarskjöld paragraph LD made an appeal to Kasavubu asking that Lumumba be treated according to due process of law. The USS had announced Hammarskjöld paragraph LD and the Western powers as responsible for Lumumba's arrest and demanded his release. The UN Security Council was called into session on December 7, 1960 to consider Soviet demands that the UN seek Lumumba's immediate release, the immediate restoration of Lumumba as head of the Congo government, the disarming of the forces of Mobutu, and the immediate evacuation of Belgians from the Congo. Hamascja paragraph LD, answering Soviet attacks against his Congo operations, said that if the UN forces were withdrawn from the Congo, I fear everything will crumble. The threat to the UN cause was intensified by the announcement of the withdrawal of their contingents by Yugoslavia, the United Arab Republic, Ceylon, Indonesia, Morocco, and Guinea. The pro-Lumumba resolution was defeated on December 14, 1960 by a vote of 8-2. On the same day, a Western resolution that would have given Hamascja paragraph LD increased powers to deal with the Congo situation was vetoed by the Soviet Union. Final days, Lumumba was sent first on December 3, to Thisville Military Barracks Camp Hardy, 150 km from La Copyright Poltville. However, when security and disciplinary breaches threatened his safety, it was decided that he should be transferred to the state of Katanga, which had recently declared independence from Congo. Lumumba was forcibly restrained on the flight to Elizabethville on January 17, 1961. On arrival, he was conducted under arrest to Brouwer's house where he was brutally beaten and tortured by Katangan and Belgian officers, while President Chom and his cabinet decided what to do with him. Death by firing squad. Later that night, Lumumba was driven to an isolated spot where 3 firing squads had been assembled. The Belgian Commission has found that the execution was carried out by Katanga's authorities. It reported that President Chom and 2 other ministers were present with 4 Belgian officers under the command of Katangan authorities. Lumumba and 2 ministers from his newly formed independent government, Maurice Mpolo and Joseph Okit'Asombo, were lined up against a tree and shot one at a time. The execution probably took place on January 17, 1961 between 21:40 and 21:43 according to the Belgian report. Announcement of death. No statement was released until 3 weeks later despite rumors that Lumumba was dead. His death was formally announced on Katangan radio, when it was alleged that he escaped and was killed by enraged villagers. After the announcement of Lumumba's death, street protests were organized in several European countries. In Belgrade, capital of Yugoslavia, protesters sacked the Belgian embassy and confronted the police, and in London a crowd marched from Trafalgar Square to the Belgian embassy, where a letter of protest was delivered and where protesters clashed with police. A demonstration at the United Nations Security Council turned violent and spilled over into the streets of New York City. Foreign involvement in his death, according to Democracy Now! Lumumba's Pan-Africanism and his vision of a united Congo gained him many enemies. Both Belgium and the United States actively sought to have him killed. The CIA ordered his assassination but could not complete the job. Instead, the United States and Belgium covertly funneled cash and aid to rival politicians who seized power and arrested Lumumba. Both Belgium and the US were clearly influenced in their unfavorable stance towards Lumumba by the Cold War. He seemed to gravitate around the Soviet Union, although according to the opinion of Sean Kelly this was not because he was a communist, but the USSR was the only place he could find support in his country's effort to rid itself of colonial rule, although this opinion is disputed by US government officials. The US was the first country from which Lumumba requested help. Lumumba, for his part, not only denied being a communist, but said he found colonialism and communism to be equally deplorable, and professed his personal preference for neutrality between the East and West. Belgian involvement. According to David Akerman, Ludo de Witt and Chris Hollington, the firing squads were commanded by a Belgian, Captain Julian Gat. Another Belgian, Police Commissioner Verschuur, had overall command of the execution site. De Witt found written orders from the Belgian government requesting Lumumba's execution and documents on various arrangements, such as death squads. On January 18, panicked by reports that the burial of the 3 bodies had been observed, members of the execution team went to dig up the bodies and move them to a place near the border with northern Rhodesia for reburial. Belgian Police Commissioner Gerard Soet later admitted in several accounts that he and his brother led the exhumation. Police Commissioner Frans Verschuur also took part. According to Adam Hochschild, author of a book on the Congo rubber terror, Lumumba's body was later cut up and dissolved in acid by 2 Belgian agents. On the afternoon and evening of January 21, Commissioner Soet and his brother dug up Lumumba's corpse for the second time, cut it up with a hacksaw, and dissolved it in concentrated sulfuric acid. Only some teeth and a fragment of skull and bullets survived the process, kept as souvenirs. In an interview on Belgian television in a program on the assassination of Lumumba in 1999, Soet displayed a bullet and 2 teeth that he boasted he had saved from Lumumba's body. De Witt also mentions that Verscha kept souvenirs from the exhumation, bullets from the skull of Lumumba. The Belgian commission investigating Lumumba's assassination concluded that Belgium wanted Lumumba arrested. Belgium was not particularly concerned with Lumumba's physical well-being, and although informed of the danger to Lumumba's life, Belgium did not take any action to avert his death, but the report also specifically denied that Belgium ordered Lumumba's assassination. Under its own Good Samaritan laws, Belgium was legally culpable for failing to prevent the assassination from taking place and was also in breach of its obligation to refrain from acts or threats aimed at impairing the freedom, independence or integrity of another state. Belgian apology. In February 2002, the Belgian government apologized to the Congolese people, and admitted to a moral responsibility, and an irrefutable portion of responsibility in the events that led to the death of Lumumba. United States involvement. The report of 2001 by the Belgian Commission mentions that there had been previous U.S. and Belgian plots to kill Lumumba. Among them was a Central Intelligence Agency-sponsored attempt to poison him, which may have come on orders from U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower. CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb was a key person in this by devising a poison resembling toothpaste. In September 1960, Gottlieb brought a vial of the poison to the Congo with plans to place it on Lumumba's toothbrush. However, the plot was later abandoned. The plan is said to have been scrapped because the local CIA station chief, Larry Devlin, refused permission. However, as Kalb points out in her book, Congo Cables, the record shows that many communications by Devlin at the time urged elimination of Lumumba. Also, the CIA station chief helped to direct the search to capture Lumumba for his transfer to his enemies in Katanga. Was involved in arranging his transfer to Katanga. And the CIA-based chief in Elizabethville was in direct touch with the killers the night Lumumba was killed. Furthermore, John Stockwell indicates that a CIA agent had the body in the trunk of his car in order to try to get rid of it. Stockwell, who knew Devlin well, felt Devlin knew more than anyone else about the murder. The inauguration of U.S. President John F. Kennedy in January 1961 caused fear among Mobutu's faction and within the CIA that the incoming administration would shift its favor to the imprisoned Lumumba. Lumumba was killed 3 days before Kennedy's inauguration on January 20, though Kennedy would not learn of the killing until February 13. Church Committee. In 1975, the Church Committee went on record with the finding that CIA Chief Allen Dulles had ordered Lumumba's assassination as an urgent and prime objective. Furthermore, declassified CIA cables quoted or mentioned in the Church report and in Kalb mentioned 2 specific CIA plots to murder Lumumba, the poison plot and a shooting plot. Although some sources claim that CIA plots ended when Lumumba was captured, that is not stated or shown in the CIA records. Rather, those records show 2 still partly censored CIA cables from Elizabethville on days significant in the murder, January 17, the day Lumumba died, and January 18, the day of the first exhumation. The former, after a long censored section, talks about where they need to go from there. The latter expresses thanks for Lumumba being sent to them and then says that, had Elizabethville base known he was coming, they would have baked a snake. This cable goes on to state that the writer's sources said that after being taken from the airport Lumumba was imprisoned by all white guards. The committee later found that while the CIA had conspired to kill Lumumba, it was not directly involved in the actual murder. U.S. government documents, declassified documents revealed that the CIA had plotted to assassinate Lumumba. These documents indicate that the Congolese leaders who killed Lumumba, including Mobutu and Joseph-Desiré received money and weapons directly from the CIA. This same disclosure showed that at that time the U.S. government believed that Lumumba was a communist. A recently declassified interview with then U.S. National Security Council Minute Keeper Robert Johnson revealed that U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower has said something to CIA Chief Allen Dulles to the effect that Lumumba should be eliminated. The interview from the Senate Intelligence Committee's inquiry on covert action was released in August 2000. British involvement. In April 2013, in a letter to the London Review of Books, a British parliamentarian, Lord David Lee, reported having discussed Lumumba's death with Baroness Park shortly before she died in March 2010. Park had been in Mile 6 officer posted to Leopoldville at the time of Lumumba's death, and was later a semi-official spokesperson for MI6 in the House of Lords. According to Lee, when he mentioned the uproar surrounding Lumumba's abduction and murder, and recalled the theory that MI6 might have had something to do with it, she replied, "We did. I organized it." BBC reported that, subsequently, Whitehall sources described the claims of MI6 involvement as speculative. Legacy. Political. Patrice Lumumba was Prime Minister of the Congo for 81 days, from June 23 to September 14, 1960. To his supporters, Lumumba was an altruistic man of strong character. He favored a unitary Congo and opposed division of the country along ethnic or regional lines. Like many other African leaders, he supported Pan-Africanism and liberation for colonial territories. He proclaimed his regime one of positive neutralism, defined as a return to African values and rejection of any imported ideology, including that of the Soviet Union. "We are not communists or Catholics. We are African nationalists." 2006 Congolese elections. The image of Patrice Lumumba continues to serve as an inspiration in contemporary Congolese politics. In the 2006 elections, several parties claimed to be motivated by his ideas, including the People's Party for Reconstruction and Democracy, the political party initiated by the incumbent President Joseph Kabila. Antoine Gizenga, who served as Lumumba's deputy prime minister in the post-independence period, was a 2006 presidential candidate under the unified Lumumist Party, and was named prime minister at the end of the year. Other political parties that directly utilize his name include the Mouvement National Congolais Lumumba and the Mouvement Lumumist. Family and politics. Patrice Lumumba's family is actively involved in contemporary Congolese politics. Patrice Lumumba was married to Pauline Lumumba and had 5 children. Frana Section-Wa was the eldest, followed by Patrice Jr., Julien, Roland and Guy Patrice Lumumba. Frana Section-Wa was 10 years old when Patrice died. Before his imprisonment, Patrice arranged for his wife and children to move into exile in Egypt, where Frana Section-Wa spent his childhood, then went to Hungary for education. Lumumba's youngest son, Guy Patrice, born 6 months after his father's death, was an independent presidential candidate in the 2006 elections, but received less than 10% of the vote. Tributes. In 1966 Patrice Lumumba's image was rehabilitated by the Mobutu regime and he was proclaimed a national hero and martyr in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. By a presidential decree, the Brouwer's house, site of Lumumba's brutal torture on the night of his murder, became a place of pilgrimage in the Congo. A major transportation artery in Kinshasa, the Lumumba Boulevard, is named in his honor. The boulevard goes past an interchange with a giant tower, the Tour de l'Étranger, commemorating him. On the tower's plaza, the first Kabila regime erected a tall statue of Lumumba with a raised hand, greeting people coming from Njili Airport. In Bamako, Mali, Lumumba Square is a large central plaza with a life-size statue of Lumumba, a park with fountains, and a flag display. Around Lumumba Square are various businesses, embassies and Bamako's largest bank. Streets were also named after him in Conti-Manciusk, Russia, in Budapest, Hungary, Jakarta, Gaborone, Botswana, Belgrade, Serbia, Sofia and Plovdiv, Bulgaria, Skopje, Republic of Macedonia, Bata and Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, Tehran, Iran, Algiers, Algeria, Santiago de Cuba, Cuba, Angstroma Cube Dar, Warsaw, 1961–1993, Poland, Kiev, Donetsk, Ukraine. Perm, Russia. Rabat, Morocco. Maputo, Mozambique. Enugu, Nigeria. Leipzig, Germany. Lusaka, Zambia. Kampala, Uganda and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Tunis, Tunisia. Fort-de-France, Martinique. Montpellier, France. Accra, Ghana. Antananarivo, Madagascar. Rotterdam, Netherlands. Alexandria, Egypt and Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. Koper, Nabria 3/4 Patrice Lumumba now renamed to Belvedere, Slovenia. The People's Friendship University of the USSR was renamed Patrice Lumumba People's Friendship University in 1961, but it was later renamed the People's Friendship University of Russia in the post-Soviet landscape in 1992. In Kampala, Uganda, Lumumba Hall of Residence at Makerere University continues to carry his name. Lumumba is a popular choice for children's names throughout Africa. In 1964 Malcolm X declared Patrice Lumumba the greatest black man who ever walked the African continent. Comedian Patrice O'Neill was named after Lumumba. A Lumumba is a popular name for hot or cold long drink of chocolate with rum. Quotations, bibliography, writings by Lumumba, Congo, My Country London, Pall Mall Press. ISBN 0-269-16092-2. Foreword and notes by Colin Legum. Translated by Graham Heath. Lumumba Speaks, The Speeches and Writings of Patrice Lumumba, 1958–1961 Boston, Little, Brown and Company. ISBN 0-316-53650-4. Editor, Jean Van Lierde. Translated by Helena Lane. Writings about Lumumba, Oima copyright Zaire, une saison au Congo. Eng. Trans. By Ralph Mainheim, A Season in the Congo. A poetic drama about the career and death of Lumumba, W. A. E. Skernick, African Political Thought, Lumumba, and Nkrumah, Tura copyright, 1968, Denver, University of Denver, ASIN B0006 CNYSW. Ludo DeWitt, The Assassination of Lumumba, trans. By Anne Wright and Rena copyright E. Fenby, 2002, London. New York, Verso, ISBN 1859844103. Thomas Akansa, Conflict in the Congo, The Rise and Fall of Lumumba, 1972, New York, Penguin, ISBN 0140410309. Robin McCown, Lumumba, A Biography, 1969, London, Doubleday, ISBN 0-385-07776-9. G. Hines and H. Donnay, Lumumba, The Last 50 Days, 1980, New York, Grove Press, ASIN B0006C07TQ. Penaf, Patrice Lumumba, 1973, New York, St. Martin's Press, ISBN 0-901787-31-0. Kwame Nkrumah, Challenge of the Congo, 1967, New York, International Publishers. Bogumil Jusioiki, ed., A Congo Chronicle, Patrice Lumumba in Urban Art, 1999, New York, Museum for African Art, ISBN 0-945802-25-0. The catalogue of a traveling exhibition of contemporary Congolese artists who were inspired by the legacy of Lumumba. Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible is a fictional account of an American missionary family in the Congo during the election and assassination of Lumumba. The book is critical of Western governments and their interference in Africa. David W. Doyle, Inside Espionage, a memoir of true men and traitors, tells the story of Lumumba's assassination from the point of view of the United States Central Intelligence Agency. Godfrey Mwakikaga, Near and Africa, and of an Era, 3rd edition, New Africa Press, 2006, Chapter 6, Congo in the 1960s, The Bleeding Heart of Africa, ppA 147 €205, ISBN 978-0980253412. Godfrey Nwakikigwa, Africa and America in the 1960s, a decade that changed the nation and the destiny of a continent, First edition, New Africa Press, 2006, ISBN 9780980253429. Films, El Congo 1961 as himself in a documentary. Seduto alla sua destra a fictional film by writer-director Valerio Zerlini starring Woody Strode as a thinly disguised Lumumba. It was released in the US as Black Jesus. Lumumba. Dramatized biography directed by Raoul Peck with Eric Bainey as Lumumba. Lumumba, Death of a Prophet. Documentary distributed by California Newsreel. Lumumba, Un crime d'état, Independence Cha-Cha The story of Patrice Lumumba. Documentary produced by Kadi Kabia. Archive video and audio, BBC On This Day September 14, 1960, Violence Follows Army Coup in Congo, BBC On This Day February 13, 1961, ex-Congo PM declared dead, anti-Belgium demonstrations over Congo Crisis 1961, BBC On This Day February 19, 1961, Lumumba rally clashes with UK police, other. In 1969 students from the Black Student Council and Mexican-American Youth Association of the University of California, San Diego proposed the name Lumumba Zapata College, for what is now known as Thurgood Marshall College. In Viennese coffee houses, Lumumba is a cocoa with rum, Lumumba coffee a black coffee with rum and whipped cream. Both beverages originate from northern Germany, where they are called Totanti and Farisa Currencia respectively. The rapper Nas dedicates his song My Country to Lumumba at the end of the song. An Argentinian reggae band was named Lumumba. Colombian salsa musician Yuri Buenaventura composed a song, Patrice Lumumba, in his honor. American songwriter Neil Diamond lists Patrice Lumumba in his song Done Too Soon. In the 1961 song Top 40, News, Weather and Sports by Mark Dinning, the verse I had Lumumba doing the rumba was removed after his death a few weeks after the release of the record. Records in stores were recalled, and new ones without the verse were distributed. Some of the original records survive. The verse can be heard in versions of the song available today. References. Sources: Mahoney, Richard D. JFK, Ordeal in Africa. Oxford University Press, 1983. ISBN 0-19-503341-8, external links, speeches and writings by and about Patrice Lumumba, at the Marxists Internet Archive. Virtual memorial to Patrice Lumumba, at Find a Grave. Patrice Lumumba, 50 years later, remembering the US-backed assassination video report by Democracy Now! Spycast December 1, 2007, on assignment to Congo. Peter chats with Larry Devlin, the CIA's legendary station chief in Congo during the 1960s. Africa Within. A rich source of information on Lumumba, including a reprint of Stephen O. Weissman's July 21, 2002 article from The Washington Post. Patrice Lumumba at Find a Grave, BBC Lumumba Apology, Congo's Mixed Feelings. Mysteries of History Lumumba Assassination. Lumumba and the Congo on YouTube documentary of Lumumba's life and work in the Congo. BBC and On This Day text. It features an audio clip of a BBC correspondent on Lumumba's death. Belgian Parliament. The findings of the Belgian Commission of 2001 investigating Belgian involvement in the death of Lumumba. Documents at the bottom of the page are in English. Beat Knowledge Tribute to Lumumba on 50th anniversary of his assassination. Belgian Commission's conclusion. A particular document from the previous link. Glyn Waldron. Dr. Glyn Waldron's extensive archive of articles, photographs, and documents from her days as a foreign press correspondent in Lumumba's 1960 Congo. CIA plans included the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. Report from The Washington Post by Karen DeYoung and Walter Pincus. Patrice Émery Lumumba, memory of Congolese leader lives on 50 years later. David Ackerman. Who Killed Lumumba? BBC. Retrieved December 1, 2007. Harry Gilroy. Lumumba assails colonialism as Congo is freed. New York Times. Retrieved December 1, 2007. The Bad Dream. Time magazine. January 20, 1961. Retrieved December 1, 2007. Lumumba children get gifts from Germany. The Straits Times. February 13, 1961. Retrieved October 8, 2010.